need you to tell me if I'm wrong here. If a complete stranger fell asleep on you in public, would you wake them up or let them rest? Because I'm still not sure if what Ethan Blackwood did that day on the F train was an act of kindness or the beginning of something calculated. Morgan Riley's head was resting on something firm but comfortable. Not her pillow too angular, not her couch too warm. Her foggy brain registered the gentle sway of the subway car as consciousness crept back. Then she felt it. The unmistakable texture of expensive wool suit fabric against her cheek, rising and falling with someone's breathing. Her eyes snapped open. Horror flooded her system as she realized she was leaning against a complete stranger. Her head nestled in the crook between his shoulder and chest. A man in a charcoal suit who was very much awake and very much aware of her using him as a pillow. Morgan jerked upright, her face burning. "Oh my God! I'm so sorry," she stammered, wiping a mortifying spot of drool from the corner of her mouth. The stranger, dark-haired, clean-shaven, with eyes that reminded her of storm clouds, gave her a measured look. "It's fine," he said simply. "Mommy, you're awake." Penny's voice cut through Morgan's embarrassment. Her 6-year-old daughter was perched on the seat beside her, clutching her worn penguin backpack. "I showed Mr. Ethan my butterfly drawing, and he said it was very anatomically accurate. Before we begin, my grandma made a bet with me that I wouldn't hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel. I love her so much, but I need y'all to help prove her wrong. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It's free, it takes half a second, and honestly, it would make my whole week. Alright, now sit back, pick up your popcorn and enjoy the story." Morgan's embarrassment deepened. Not only had she fallen asleep on this poor man, but her daughter had apparently been chatting him up the entire time. "Mr. Ethan knows lots about butterflies," Penny continued, oblivious to her mother's discomfort. "And he has a helicopter, but he doesn't have any kids or pets, which is sad." "Penny," Morgan hissed, "we don't interrogate strangers." The man, Ethan apparently, surprised her with a small smile. She wasn't interrogating, just conversing. Very articulately, I might add. The train slowed, approaching their stop. Morgan gathered their things, desperate to escape this mortifying situation. "This is us," she said, standing and taking Penny's hand. "I'm really sorry about all of this." "No apology necessary," he replied. "You clearly needed the rest." "Bye, Mr. Ethan," Penny called as Morgan practically dragged her toward the doors. "Remember what I said about getting a turtle?" As the doors closed behind them, Morgan exhaled. What a way to end an already terrible day. At least she'd never see that man again. She had no idea how wrong she was. 12 hours earlier, Morgan had arrived at Brooklyn Memorial Hospital for her shift, already running on fumes. Penny had been up with a nightmare at 2 a.m., and the ancient radiator in their apartment had started making a sound like a dying whale around 4. Sleep had been a lost cause after that. "You look like you got hit by an ambulance," Tasha Williams commented as Morgan stashed her bag in her locker. Tasha had been Morgan's friend since nursing school, before Morgan had to drop out when she got pregnant with Penny. "Thanks. That's exactly the look I was going for," Morgan replied, tying her hair back into a practical ponytail. "Rough night. Rough month." Morgan slammed her locker shut. "Derek's 3 months behind on child support. The daycare's threatening to drop Penny if I don't catch up on payments. And this morning I got a notice that my rent's going up another $100 next month." Tasha winced. "Can they do that? Isn't there rent control or something?" "Not in my building. And before you offer, I can't borrow money again. I still owe you from last time." "I wasn't going to offer," Tasha lied. "I was going to suggest you join me for that pharmaceutical rep lunch today. Free food, at least." Morgan's stomach growled at the mention of food. She'd skipped breakfast to make Penny's lunch, the last of the bread and peanut butter. Grocery shopping would have to wait until payday. "You're a lifesaver," Morgan said. The morning passed in a blur of vital signs, medication rounds, and bedpans. Morgan moved on autopilot, her body going through the motions while her mind calculated and recalculated her finances. If she picked up an extra weekend shift, maybe she could cover the rent increase. But that meant finding someone to watch Penny, which meant more money. Ms. Riley, an elderly patient, touched her arm, breaking her spiral of worry. "Are you all right, dear? You've been standing there staring at my for nearly a minute." Morgan blinked. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Abernathy. Just a little tired today." "You work too hard," he said kindly. "All you young people do. Life's too short for so much worry." Easy for him to say, Morgan thought, but she smiled and adjusted his pillows before moving on to her next patient. By lunchtime, Morgan's feet were throbbing and her lower back had developed a persistent ache. The pharmaceutical lunch was a godsend. She loaded her plate with sandwiches, pasta salad, and cookies, wrapping an extra sandwich in a napkin for later. "So," Tasha said between bites, "when was the last time you did something for yourself? Like, went on a date or got a massage or just, I don't know, took a nap?" Morgan snorted. "A date? With what time? With what childcare? With what energy?" She shook her head. "And the last massage I got was from Penny stepping on my back pretending to be a tightrope walker." "That's what I thought," Tasha said. "Which is why I got you this." She slid a small envelope across the table. Morgan opened it suspiciously. Inside was a gift certificate for a nail salon. "Tasha, I can't." "You can and you will. It's 10 minutes from your apartment, they take walk-ins, and I already told Penny about it last time she visited the hospital. She's very excited to see your fingers painted Rainbow Sparkle Unicorn." Morgan's throat tightened. "You're too good to me." "Nope, just the right amount of good. Now eat another sandwich. You're skinny enough to make me look bad." The afternoon shift was even busier than the morning. A patient coded, requiring all hands on deck for nearly an hour. Then an understaffed unit borrowed Morgan to help with admissions. By the time she clocked out, she was running late for Penny's daycare pickup. She jogged the 6 blocks to Little Explorer's daycare, arriving breathless and sweaty just as they were about to call the emergency contacts. "I'm so sorry," Morgan said to Ms. Jenkins, the director. "There was an emergency at the hospital and—" "It's fine, Ms. Riley," Ms. Jenkins said, though her tone suggested it wasn't. "But about the payment." Morgan's heart sank. "I get paid on Friday. I promise I'll bring it then with the late fee." Ms. Jenkins pursed her lips. "This is the 3rd time this month." "I know. I'm sorry. My ex is behind on child support and your personal situation isn't my concern," Ms. Jenkins cut in. "My concern is running a business. If you can't pay by Friday, we'll have to discuss whether Little Explorers is the right fit for Penny." The threat hung in the air between them. Morgan swallowed hard. "I understand. Friday. Definitely." Penny bounded over then, pigtails bouncing, clutching a paper covered in glitter. "Mommy, look what I made. It's a butterfly garden with a rainbow and a castle where the butterfly princess lives." Morgan forced a smile. "It's beautiful, sweetie. Ready to go home." On the subway platform, Morgan checked her wallet. $73.42. All that stood between them and hunger until payday. She'd have to be creative with meals this week. The train was mercifully half empty when it arrived. Morgan guided Penny to a row of seats, collapsing into one with a sigh that seemed to come from her very soul. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Penny whispered, clutching her penguin backpack. "I know, sweetie. We'll eat when we get home." Morgan smoothed Penny's hair, noticing a small tear in her jacket sleeve. Another item for the endless to-do list. The train lurched forward, and Morgan felt the weight of the day pressing down on her shoulders. Across from them, a man in an expensive suit was focused on his phone, typing rapidly with one hand while the other held what looked like financial reports. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar, but Morgan was too tired to place him. "Can I color?" Penny asked. "Of course." Morgan dug through her bag, past her hospital ID, past the overdue bills, finally locating the small coloring book and 3 stubby crayons. The businessman across from them glanced up briefly, his eyes meeting Morgan's for a fleeting moment before returning to his phone. She noticed his watch. Sleek, expensive, probably worth more than her monthly rent. "Mommy, look." Penny held up her coloring. a butterfly with mismatched wings. One blue, one purple. That's beautiful, baby. Morgan smiled, genuine despite her exhaustion. The train rocked gently as it moved between stations. Penny returned to her coloring. A teenager with headphones got off at the next stop. The businessman across from them took a call, speaking quietly about market projections and quarterly reports. Morgan's eyelids grew heavier with each passing moment. She checked her watch, still 7 stops to go. Penny was humming softly, lost in her own world of crayons and paper butterflies. Just for a minute, Morgan thought. I'll close my eyes just for a minute. Her head nodded forward, then jerked back up. The second time, she didn't fight it. Sleep pulled her under like a wave, and she surrendered. Ethan Blackwood was reviewing the Henderson acquisition projections when he felt a weight against his shoulder. He looked down to find the woman from across the aisle had somehow migrated to the seat beside him and was now fast asleep, her head resting against him. His first instinct was to wake her, to reclaim his personal space. But something stopped him. The dark circles beneath her eyes, perhaps. Or the way her body seemed to sag with exhaustion even in sleep. Or maybe it was the little girl now sitting directly across from him, watching him with curious eyes. "My mommy's really tired," the girl whispered, as if sharing an important secret. "I can see that," Ethan whispered back, unsure why he was engaging with this child. "She works at the hospital and makes people better. Then she comes home and makes me dinner and reads me stories even when her eyes keep closing." Ethan nodded, uncomfortable with this unsolicited glimpse into a stranger's life. "I'm Penny," the girl continued. "I'm 6. I'm Ethan. I'm 38. This seemed to satisfy Penny, who returned to her coloring. Ethan tried to focus on his reports, but found his attention drawn to the sleeping woman and her daughter. The woman's clothes were clean but worn, her shoes practical but scuffed. The little girl's backpack had been mended with duct tape along one seam. "What are you drawing?" he found himself asking. Penny held up her coloring book. "A butterfly. Did you know butterflies taste with their feet?" "I did not know that." "It's true. Ms. Larson at school told us. They have taste receptors in their feet, so when they land on a flower, they can taste if the nectar is good." She said receptors carefully, clearly proud of the scientific term. "That's fascinating," Ethan said, and was surprised to find he meant it. "Do you have kids?" Penny asked, switching topics with the lightning speed only children possess. "No. Why not? Don't you like kids?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "I've never really thought about it. I'm busy with work." Penny considered this. "My daddy says that too. That's why he doesn't come see me much. He's busy with work and his new family." Something twisted in Ethan's chest. "I'm sorry to hear that." Penny shrugged. "It's okay. Mommy says we're a complete family, just the two of us." She looked at her mother's sleeping face. "But sometimes I think Mommy gets lonely." Ethan didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. "What else do you know about butterflies?" For the next 3 stops, Penny educated him on butterfly migration patterns, life cycles, and her personal rankings of butterfly species by prettiness. Monarch butterflies were the clear winner, with blue morphos a close second. When the woman, Morgan, he learned from Penny, finally woke with a start, her mortification was palpable. Ethan found himself oddly reluctant to see them go. As the train doors closed behind them, he noticed something on the seat where they'd been sitting. A small, worn wallet. He grabbed it without thinking and lunged for the doors, but they sealed shut before he could reach them. Through the glass, he saw Morgan and Penny disappearing up the station stairs. Ethan sat back down, the wallet in his hand. He should turn it in to the MTA Lost and Found, he knew. But something told him this woman couldn't afford to wait days or weeks for bureaucracy to work. He opened it, looking for identification. A hospital ID badge showed her face, tired but smiling professionally. Morgan Riley, nursing assistant, Brooklyn Memorial Hospital. Now he had a name and a workplace. He could return the wallet tomorrow. That was the logical thing to do. The only thing to do, really. But as Ethan slipped the wallet into his pocket, He found himself wondering about Morgan Riley and her daughter, about the kind of life they led, about what it might be like to have someone waiting at home who was genuinely happy to see you, even if you were too tired to keep your eyes open. His own apartment, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, would be empty when he returned. No one to ask about his day. No one to show him butterfly drawings or share random facts about insect taste receptors. Ethan shook his head, dismissing the thought. He was being ridiculous. He'd return the wallet tomorrow and that would be the end of it. Morgan realized her wallet was missing halfway home. "Penny, did you see Mommy's wallet?" she asked, trying to keep the panic from her voice as she rifled through her bag for the third time. Penny shook her head. "No. Is it lost? I think I might have left it on the train." Morgan's stomach clenched. $73. Her ID, her Metro card, all gone. "Can we go back and look for it?" "It's probably long gone by now, sweetie." Morgan took a deep breath. "It's okay. We'll figure it out." But it wasn't okay. That money was supposed to last until payday. Without it, they'd be eating ramen noodles and whatever was left in the pantry. And without her ID, she'd have trouble getting into the hospital tomorrow. They walked the rest of the way home in silence, Morgan's mind racing through increasingly desperate scenarios. Could she ask Tasha for another loan? Could she call Derek and beg for the child support he owed? Could she pawn something? Their apartment was small but clean. A one-bedroom walk-up in a neighborhood that was just starting to gentrify. Morgan slept on the pull-out couch in the living room, giving Penny the bedroom. It wasn't ideal, but it was home. "Grilled cheese for dinner?" Morgan asked, forcing cheerfulness into her voice as she checked the refrigerator. They had half a block of cheese and 4 slices of bread left. It would have to do. "With tomato soup?" Penny asked hopefully. Morgan checked the pantry. "No soup. Not tonight, sweetie. But I'll cut the sandwiches into triangles the way you like." While Penny changed out of her school clothes, Morgan leaned against the kitchen counter and allowed herself 30 seconds of pure panic. No wallet. No money. No ID. She pressed her palms against her eyes, willing herself not to cry. 30 seconds. That was all she could afford. Then she straightened up, wiped her eyes, and started making dinner. Later, after Penny was asleep, Morgan sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and made a list. Tomorrow she would call the MTA Lost and Found. Unlikely, but worth a try. Get a replacement ID at the hospital, ask about an advance on her paycheck, call Derek, again, about the child support. She could make it work. She always did. Ethan Blackwood's morning routine was a precision operation. Wake at 5:30. Exercise for exactly 45 minutes. Shower for 7 minutes. Breakfast while reviewing overnight emails from international markets. Car service at 7:15 sharp. But today he added a detour. Brooklyn Memorial Hospital, he told his driver, ignoring the man's surprised glance in the rearview mirror. Blackwood Innovations headquarters was in the opposite direction. Ethan wasn't entirely sure why he'd decided to deliver the wallet personally. He could have sent a courier. He could have mailed it. Hell, he could have just taken out the cash, added a few hundred more, and sent that anonymously. But something about Morgan Riley and her daughter had stuck with him. Perhaps it was the contrast between their obvious struggles and their equally obvious dignity. Perhaps it was the way Penny had chatted with him so openly, without the calculation or deference he was accustomed to receiving. Or perhaps it was simply that he was curious. Brooklyn Memorial was a far cry from the sleek private hospitals Ethan was used to. The building was old, the paint institutional, the waiting room crowded with people who looked tired and worried. He approached the information desk, feeling oddly out of place in his tailored suit. "I'm looking for Morgan Riley. She's a nursing assistant here." The receptionist eyed him suspiciously. "Are you a patient?" "No. I found her wallet on the subway yesterday. I'd like to return it to her." The receptionist's expression softened slightly. "That's nice of you. Let me page her supervisor." 5 minutes later, a harried-looking woman in scrubs approached him. "I'm Nurse Torres. You have Morgan's wallet." "Yes. I'd prefer to give it to her directly, if that's possible." Nurse Torres gave him an appraising look. She's on the third floor. I'll page her to come down. Ethan waited in the lobby, watching the flow of humanity around him. Doctors hurried past with purposeful strides. Patients shuffled along with 4 poles. Family members clutched coffee cups and worried expressions. He was so absorbed in his observations that he didn't notice Morgan's approach until she was standing right in front of him. "You," she said, stopping a few feet away. He turned, recognition lighting his eyes. "Ms. Riley, I found your wallet after you left the train yesterday." He held it out to her. Morgan took it with trembling fingers, quickly checking inside. Everything was there, her ID, her cards, her cash. Relief made her knees weak. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." She clutched the wallet to her chest. "I wouldn't have been able to buy food until next week if I'd lost this." Something flickered across Ethan's face. Surprise, perhaps, or discomfort at her candor. "I'm glad I could return it," he said simply. An awkward silence fell between them. Morgan became acutely aware of her scrubs, the coffee stain on her sleeve, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Well, thank you again, Mr. Blackwood. Ethan Blackwood." The name tickled something in Morgan's memory, but she couldn't place it. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. And I'm sorry again about falling asleep on you. I was just so tired. And no apology necessary." His voice was firm but not unkind. "Your daughter explained that you work very hard." Morgan smiled despite herself. "Penny talks too much to strangers. She's charming." Pause. "She also mentioned you read to her even when you can barely keep your eyes open." Heat crept up Morgan's neck. "Kids notice everything." Ethan nodded, then glanced at his watch. A sleek, expensive timepiece that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "I should let you get back to work," he said. "Yes, I should." She gestured vaguely toward the hospital corridors behind her. He nodded once, a crisp, businesslike movement, then turned to leave. "Mr. Blackwood," she called after him. He paused, looking back. "How did you know where I worked?" He pointed to the ID badge clipped to her scrubs. "It was in your wallet. I thought it would be faster than the MTA lost and found. Right? Of course." She felt foolish for asking. "Well, thanks again." He gave her a small smile, then walked out the sliding doors into the bright morning. Morgan returned to her shift, the wallet safely tucked in her pocket. She tried to focus on her patients, on medication schedules and vital signs, but her mind kept drifting back to Ethan Blackwood and his unexpected kindness. It was only during her lunch break, when Tasha was scrolling through her phone, that the mystery was solved. "Oh my God," Tasha said suddenly. "That's him. That's the guy who returned your wallet." She thrust her phone at Morgan. On the screen was a news article about tech innovations, featuring a photo of Ethan Blackwood in the same navy suit he'd worn that morning. "Ethan Blackwood," Morgan read aloud, "CEO of Blackwood Innovations. Net worth estimated at $4.7 billion. She looked up at Tasha, stunned. "That can't be right." "Girl, you fell asleep on a billionaire," Tasha said, eyes wide. "And then he personally returned your wallet. That's some Hallmark movie stuff right there." Morgan shook her head. "It's not like that. He was just being decent." Decent would be turning it in to lost and found. This man came to Brooklyn, which I guarantee you is not where he lives, to hand-deliver your wallet. Tasha waggled her eyebrows suggestively. "He's interested. Don't be ridiculous. Men like that don't look twice at women like me." Apparently this one did. "What else did he say?" Morgan shrugged. "Nothing, really. He just gave me the wallet and left." Tasha looked disappointed. "Well, that's anticlimactic. But still, a billionaire. Wait till I tell my mom. She loves this kind of story." "Please don't tell anyone," Morgan said quickly. "It's embarrassing enough that I fell asleep on him. I don't need the whole hospital knowing." "Fine, fine. But you have to admit it's a good story." Morgan rolled her eyes. "It's a non-story. I'll never see him again, and that's that." But 3 days later, Morgan was helping an elderly patient back to bed when Nurse Torres appeared in the doorway. "Riley, there's a delivery for you at the front desk." "A delivery? I didn't order anything." Nurse Torres shrugged. "Well, someone sent you something. Better go see what it is." Curious and slightly concerned, Morgan made her way to reception. Sitting on the counter was a large wicker basket wrapped in cellophane, filled with groceries, fresh fruit, vegetables, pasta, bread, even a small roast chicken. "Who sent this?" she asked the receptionist. "A courier dropped it off. There's a card." Morgan found the small envelope tucked among the items. Inside was a simple white card with neat handwriting. "For you and Penny. No strings attached. E.B." She stared at the basket, emotions warring inside her. Gratitude, embarrassment, pride. She hadn't asked for charity, hadn't mentioned their financial struggles beyond that one comment about not being able to buy food. Yet here was this basket clearly chosen with care. Not a gift card or cash that might feel like a handout, but actual food. Practical, thoughtful. Her first instinct was to find a way to return it. But as she looked at the fresh produce, the bread that would make perfect sandwiches for Penny's lunch, her resolve weakened. This would feed them for days. Secret admirer? Tasha appeared at her elbow, eyeing the basket with undisguised curiosity. "It's from him," Morgan said quietly. "The billionaire." Tasha's eyes widened. "No way. Let me see the card." She snatched it from Morgan's hand. "E.B. Ethan Blackwood. I knew it. He's totally into you." "He's not into me. He's just being nice." "Billionaires don't do nice without a reason, Morgan. Trust me." Morgan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means men like that are used to getting what they want. And right now, he wants your attention." "That's ridiculous. He doesn't even know me." "He knows you're a single mom who works hard and reads to her kid even when you're exhausted. He knows you're struggling financially but too proud to ask for help. And he knows you're pretty enough to make an impression even in scrubs with a coffee stain." Morgan felt her face heat. "Stop it. You're making this into something it's not." "Am I? Then why did he send this?" Tasha gestured at the basket. "Why not just forget about the tired nurse he met on the subway?" Morgan had no answer for that. She tucked the card into her pocket and arranged to have the basket kept in the break room refrigerator until her shift ended. That night, as she and Penny ate roast chicken with fresh vegetables, her daughter asked where the food came from. "A friend," Morgan said simply. "What friend?" Morgan hesitated. "Remember the man on the train? The one you showed your butterfly to?" Penny's face lit up. "Mr. Ethan, who's 38? "Yes, him. He found my wallet after we left the train and brought it back to me at work." "That was nice of him." "Yes, it was." Morgan twirled pasta on her fork. "And he sent us this food." Penny considered this while chewing a piece of chicken. "Is he your boyfriend now?" Morgan nearly choked. "No, sweetie. He's just being kind. Daddy never sends us food." The simple observation stung with truth. "No, he doesn't. I like Mr. Ethan better than Daddy." Morgan didn't know how to respond to that, so she changed the subject. "Tell me what you learned in school today." Later, after Penny was asleep, Morgan sat at their small kitchen table with a notepad. She wrote a thank you note, trying to strike the right balance between gratitude and dignity. After 3 attempts, she settled on, "Mr. Blackwood, thank you for the groceries. Your kindness is appreciated more than I can express." Penny especially enjoyed the strawberries. "Sincerely, Morgan Riley." She added her phone number at the bottom, then immediately second-guessed herself. Was that too forward? But how else could he contact her if he wanted to? Not that he would want to. Men like Ethan Blackwood, men in expensive suits with expensive watches who could afford to send gourmet food baskets on a whim, didn't typically maintain connections with single mothers who fell asleep on them in the subway. Still, she kept the number. She dropped the note off at the hospital reception desk tomorrow, in case he came back. Ethan Blackwood was not in the habit of thinking about strangers. His world was populated by business associates, competitors, employees, and the occasional date arranged by his executive assistant who thought he worked too much. Meaningful connections were rare and usually temporary. Yet he couldn't stop thinking about Morgan Riley and her daughter. He told himself it was just curiosity, or perhaps guilt, the discomfort of witnessing someone else's struggle when his own life was so comfortable. The food basket had been an impulse, a way to ease that discomfort. But when his phone rang with an unknown number a week after he'd delivered the wallet, he answered immediately, somehow knowing it would be her. "Mr. Blackwood? This is Morgan Riley. From the subway. Ms. Riley, I got your note. I wanted to thank you properly for the food. It was very generous." He heard the hesitation in her voice, the careful pride. "It was nothing," he said, then immediately regretted his choice of words. It wasn't nothing to her. Well, it meant a lot to us, especially Penny. She's been talking about Mr. Ethan, who's 38, all week. He found himself smiling. "How is she?" "Good. She's good. She, actually asked if you were my boyfriend now." Ethan was startled into a laugh. Kids are direct. Terrifyingly so. She paused. "Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, and that you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." Another pause. "How are things otherwise?" He heard her inhale as if surprised by the question. "Fine. We're fine." The lie was transparent, but he didn't press. "Good." Silence stretched between them, neither quite ready to end the call. "I should let you go," she finally said. "I'm sure you're busy." Actually, Ethan surprised himself with what came next. "I was wondering if you and Penny might like to have dinner sometime, as a thank you for letting me be your pillow on the subway." The joke fell flat in the silence that followed. "Mr. Blackwood." "Ethan, please." "Ethan, that's very kind, but unnecessary. And probably complicated." "Complicated." She sighed. "You're clearly successful. I'm a single mom who works as a nursing assistant and falls asleep on strangers. We're from different worlds." "It's just dinner, Ms. Riley." "Morgan." "Morgan." He liked the way her name felt. "It's just dinner. No strings attached. Like the groceries." Another pause. He could almost hear her thinking. "Penny would love it," she finally said. "She hasn't been to a restaurant in months." Then it's settled. "When are you free?" They arranged to meet that Saturday at a family-friendly restaurant near the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. Nothing too fancy, he promised, sensing her concern. After hanging up, Ethan sat at his desk, wondering what had possessed him to make such an invitation. He didn't do family dinners. He didn't spend time with children. His own childhood had been sterile and lonely, full of nannies and boarding schools while his parents built their business empire. Yet something about Morgan Riley and her fierce, exhausted dignity intrigued him. And something about little Penny with her butterflies and her frank observations made him smile. It was just dinner, he told himself. A simple kindness. Nothing more. The restaurant was nicer than Morgan had expected, despite Ethan's assurances. Not formal, but definitely a step above the fast food places that were her usual budget option. She dressed Penny in her best outfit, a floral dress handed down from a cousin, and had agonized over her own appearance before settling on a simple blue dress she hadn't worn in over a year. Ethan was waiting at a corner table when they arrived. He stood as they approached, and Morgan noticed he'd dressed down for the occasion. Dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt instead of a suit. The effort touched her. "Mr. Ethan, who's 38, Penny exclaimed, loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. He smiled, genuinely amused. "Hello, Penny, who's 6. And Morgan." "Hi," Morgan said, suddenly shy, up close. Without the distraction of embarrassment or hospital surroundings, she noticed how attractive he was. Not in a polished magazine cover way, but in a real, lived-in way. His eyes were gray-blue, like the ocean before a storm. His smile created a small dimple in his left cheek. They sat, and a waiter immediately appeared with menus. Morgan glanced at the prices and felt her stomach drop. Even the children's meals cost more than she'd spend on groceries for days. "Order whatever you'd like," Ethan said, noticing her expression. "This is my treat. Can I get spaghetti?" Penny asked, already spotting her favorite food. "Of course," Morgan said. relieved that at least her daughter's taste was relatively inexpensive. "And what about you?" Ethan asked Morgan. She hesitated, scanning for the least expensive option. "Maybe the chicken salad. The salmon is excellent here," Ethan suggested. "Or the steak if you eat red meat." Morgan felt a flicker of irritation. Was he flaunting his wealth? But when she looked up, his expression held no condescension, only genuine recommendation. "The salmon sounds nice," she conceded. After they ordered, an awkward silence fell. Morgan searched for something to say, but Penny beat her to it. "Mr. Ethan, do you really have a helicopter?" Ethan looked surprised. "I do, yes, for business trips. Can I ride in it someday?" "Penny," Morgan hissed, mortified. "It's okay," Ethan said. "And maybe someday, Penny. With your mom's permission, of course." Penny looked triumphant. "See, Mommy? Mr. Ethan says it's okay." "Mr. Ethan is being polite," Morgan said firmly. "Now, why don't you tell him about your science project?" Penny launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her class's butterfly habitat, complete with hand gestures and sound effects. Ethan listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, asking questions that delighted Penny with their seriousness. Morgan watched them, a strange feeling blooming in her chest. When was the last time a man had shown such interest in her daughter? Derek certainly never had, even when they were together. "And Ms. Larson says we might get to release them in the park when they're butterflies," Penny concluded. "That sounds like an important responsibility," Ethan said. "You'll have to let me know how it goes." The implication that they would still be in contact weeks from now hung in the air. Morgan felt both warmed and wary. Their food arrived, momentarily distracting them. Penny dug into her spaghetti with gusto, getting sauce on her chin almost immediately. Morgan handed her a napkin automatically. "So," Ethan said, turning his attention to Morgan, "how long have you been at Brooklyn Memorial?" "For years," she replied. "I was in nursing school before that, but—" She glanced at Penny. Life took a different turn. "Do you enjoy it?" Morgan considered the question. No one had asked her that in a long time. "Parts of it. I like helping people, making a difference even in small ways. But the hours are long, the pay is—" She trailed off, not wanting to sound like she was complaining or, worse, hinting. "Inadequate," Ethan finished for her. "Healthcare is complicated," she said diplomatically. "Most systems are when profit is prioritized over people." Morgan looked at him in surprise. It wasn't the kind of statement she expected from a billionaire CEO. "What?" he asked, noticing her expression. "Nothing. I just wouldn't have expected you to see it that way." "Because I'm wealthy?" Morgan felt her face heat. "I didn't mean—" "It's a fair assumption," he said, cutting off her apology. "Most people in my position benefit from the status quo. But that doesn't mean I can't recognize its flaws." Before Morgan could respond, a commotion erupted at a nearby table. An elderly man was clutching his chest, his face contorted in pain. "Harold?" his companion cried. "Harold, what's wrong?" Morgan was on her feet before she could think, nursing instincts taking over. "Sir? Sir? Can you hear me?" The man nodded, gasping. "I'm a nursing assistant. I'm going to help you, okay?" She turned to the woman. "Has he had heart problems before?" "He has a stent," the woman said, panic in her voice. "He takes medication." Morgan checked his pulse, rapid and irregular. "Someone call 911, she called out. A waiter was already on his phone. "Chest pain?" she asked the man. He nodded. "Radiating to your arm or jaw?" Another nod. "Penny, stay with Mr. Ethan," Morgan said over her shoulder. Then to the man, "Sir, do you have nitroglycerin with you?" "Pocket," he managed. Morgan found the small pill bottle in his jacket. "I'm going to give you one under your tongue. Okay?" She administered the medication with calm efficiency, then helped him into a position that would ease his breathing, seated but leaning slightly forward. "The ambulance is on its way," the waiter reported. "Good." Sir, try to stay calm. Take slow, deep breaths if you can. Morgan stayed with the man, monitoring his pulse and breathing, until paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. She gave them a concise report: possible heart attack, nitroglycerin administered, slight improvement in symptoms. Only after the paramedics had taken over did Morgan return to their table, where Ethan and Penny were watching wide-eyed. "Sorry about that," she said, sitting down. Her food had gone cold. "That was amazing," Ethan said, genuine admiration in his voice. Morgan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Just doing my job. Mommy helps people all the time," Penny said proudly. "That's why she's so tired." Morgan smiled at her daughter, then noticed several people at nearby tables watching her with respect. It was an unfamiliar feeling. "I think you just saved that man's life," Ethan said quietly. "The paramedics would have been here soon anyway, but you knew exactly what to do. You were so calm." Morgan felt her face heat again, but this time with a strange mix of pride and embarrassment. "Can we talk about something else?" Ethan nodded, respecting her wish. "Penny, tell me more about your favorite butterflies." As Penny launched into another enthusiastic explanation, Morgan caught Ethan watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't pity, which she'd half expected. It wasn't the clinical interest of someone studying a curiosity from another world. It was something closer to admiration, and that, Morgan found, was the most unsettling thing of all. After dinner, Ethan insisted on calling them a car service home. Morgan started to protest. They could take the subway, but one look at Penny's drooping eyelids changed her mind. It had been a long day for her daughter. "Thank you for dinner," Morgan said as they stood outside the restaurant. "It was lovely. Can we do it again?" Penny asked, stifling a yawn. Morgan opened her mouth to deflect, but Ethan spoke first. "I'd like that very much, if it's okay with your mom." They both looked at Morgan, who felt suddenly cornered. Part of her wanted to say no, to end this strange connection before it became complicated. Before Penny got attached to yet another man who would inevitably disappear from their lives. But another part, a part she'd thought long dormant, wanted to say yes. "We'll see," she said finally, a parent's universal non-answer. Ethan smiled, seeming to understand the caution behind her response. "Fair enough." The car arrived, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. The driver stepped out and opened the door for them. "Wow," Penny whispered. "Is this a limo?" "Just a car," Ethan said. "But a comfortable one." Morgan helped Penny into the back seat, then turned to Ethan. "Thank you again. For everything." "It was my pleasure." He hesitated, then added, "I'd like to call you. Would that be all right?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibilities. Morgan thought about Tasha's warnings, about the vast differences in their lives, about how many times she'd been disappointed before. "Yes," she said finally. "That would be all right." His smile, genuine, with that small dimple in his left cheek, made something flutter in her chest. "Good night, Morgan." "Good night, Ethan." In the car, Penny fell asleep almost immediately, her head resting against Morgan's arm. Morgan stared out the window at the passing city lights, trying to make sense of the evening. A billionaire CEO had taken them to dinner, had listened to Penny's butterfly stories with genuine interest, had looked at Morgan like she was something special, not just a tired single mom who couldn't keep her eyes open on the subway. It didn't make sense. Men like Ethan Blackwood didn't date women like her. They dated models and socialites and women who knew which fork to use at fancy restaurants. Yet he wanted to call her. The car pulled up outside their apartment building, a stark contrast to whatever luxury Ethan was returning to. Morgan thanked the driver, then gently woke Penny. "We're home, sweetie. Time for bed." Upstairs, as Morgan tucked Penny into bed, her daughter asked sleepily, "Is Mr. Ethan going to be your boyfriend now?" Morgan smoothed Penny's hair back from her forehead. "It's not that simple, honey." "Why not? You like him. He likes you. That's how it works in my books. Out of the mouths of babes. Real life is more complicated than books. Now go to sleep." "I hope he calls you," Penny murmured, already drifting off. He makes you smile. Morgan kissed her daughter's forehead, then retreated to the living room, Penny's words echoing in her mind. Did Ethan make her smile? She supposed he did. But was that enough reason to pursue? Whatever this was, her phone buzzed with a text message. Just making sure you got home safely. Thank you for a wonderful evening, Ethan. Morgan stared at the message, a small smile forming despite her reservations. We did, thank you. Penny's already asleep. Thank you again for dinner. His response came quickly. She's a remarkable child. You should be proud. Morgan's throat tightened. I am. Would it be all right if I called you tomorrow? Morgan hesitated, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was her chance to end it cleanly, to thank him for his kindness but explain that their worlds were too different, that it would never work. Instead, she typed, yes, that would be nice. Ethan Blackwood's penthouse was silent when he returned, the lights automatically brightening as he entered. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering Manhattan skyline, a view that had cost millions, but that he rarely stopped to appreciate anymore. He loosened his tie, poured himself a scotch, and stood at the window, replaying the evening in his mind. Morgan Riley was unlike anyone he'd ever met. There was a quiet strength to her, a dignity that transcended her circumstances. And the way she'd handled that medical emergency, calm, competent, compassionate, had impressed him more than any boardroom presentation ever had. Then there was Penny, with her butterfly facts and unfiltered observations. She'd asked him if he was lonely in his big apartment with no kids or pets. The question had caught him off guard. Was he lonely? He'd never really thought about it that way. He was busy, successful, fulfilled by his work. But watching Morgan and Penny together, the easy affection between them, the inside jokes, the way they anticipated each other's needs, had stirred something in him, a recognition of what was missing from his own life. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The screen showed his executive assistant's name. Naomi, he answered. It's late. Is everything all right? Sorry to bother you, Mr. Blackwood, but Victor Harrington's team just sent over a revised proposal for the merger. They're asking for an answer by Monday. Ethan sighed. Victor Harrington, CEO of Harrington Tech, had been pursuing a merger with Blackwood Innovations for months. The deal made sense on paper, their technologies were complementary, their market positions aligned. But something about Harrington had always struck Ethan as untrustworthy. Send it to my email. I'll review it tomorrow. There's one more thing, Naomi said, hesitation in her voice. Mr. Harrington mentioned he saw you at Botanica tonight, with a woman and child. Ethan stiffened. Did he? He seemed curious about who they were. Of course he was. Victor Harrington was known for using personal information as leverage in business dealings. The fact that he'd noticed Ethan with Morgan and Penny was concerning. Thank you for letting me know, Naomi. Good night. Ethan set down his phone, his good mood evaporating. The last thing he wanted was for Morgan and Penny to become pawns in Harrington's games. They deserved better than that. Perhaps this was a sign. A reminder that his world was full of sharks and power plays. Not a place for a hard-working nursing assistant and her butterfly-loving daughter. Yet even as the thought formed, Ethan rejected it. He'd spent his career refusing to be intimidated by men like Harrington. He wasn't about to start now, especially not when it came to someone that mattered to him. Because Morgan Riley did matter to him, he realized. In a way that was both unexpected and undeniable. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard you had interesting dinner companions tonight. Didn't know you were the family man type, Blackwood. Ethan's jaw tightened. He deleted the message without responding, then blocked the number. Victor Harrington would not dictate who he spent time with. He returned to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere out there, in a small Brooklyn apartment, Morgan was probably getting ready for bed. Maybe checking on Penny one last time. Maybe thinking about their evening together. The thought made him smile despite everything. The next morning, Morgan woke to the sound of Penny singing in the bathroom. She checked her phone. No missed calls or texts from Ethan. A small disappointment pricked at her. which she immediately chided herself for. It was barely 7 a.m. on a Sunday. Normal people weren't awake yet, let alone making phone calls. She stretched and got up, folding the sofa bed back into a couch before Penny emerged from the bathroom. "Morning, Mommy. Can we have pancakes?" Morgan checked the kitchen. Thanks to Ethan's grocery basket earlier in the week, they actually had the ingredients. "Sure, sweetie. Want to help?" They made pancakes together, Penny standing on a stool to stir the batter while Morgan heated the griddle. It was their weekend ritual, one of the few luxuries they could afford. "Do you think Mr. Ethan likes pancakes?" Penny asked, carefully dropping blueberries into the cooking batter. "I'm sure he does. Most people do. Maybe we could make him pancakes sometime." Morgan flipped a pancake, buying time. "Penny, I don't want you getting too attached to Mr. Ethan. We've only met him a few times. But he's nice, and he listens when I talk about butterflies. And he makes you smile." There it was again, that observation that seemed to cut right to the heart of things. Yes, he is nice, but grown-up relationships are complicated. Because he's rich and we're not? Morgan nearly dropped the spatula. "Where did you hear that?" Penny shrugged. "I heard you talking to Tasha on the phone. She said he's a billionaire and you're from different worlds." Morgan made a mental note to be more careful about her phone conversations. "That's part of it, yes. But in Beauty and the Beast, Belle and the Beast are from different worlds, and they still fall in love. This isn't a Disney movie, sweetie." "I know," Penny said, suddenly serious. "But you deserve to be happy, Mommy. And Mr. Ethan makes you happy. I can tell." Morgan didn't know how to respond to that, so she focused on serving the pancakes instead. "These look delicious. Good job with the blueberries." They ate breakfast together, Penny chattering about her plans to show her butterfly drawings to her class on Monday. Morgan listened, nodding in the right places, but her mind kept drifting to Ethan. Would he really call today? And if he did, what would she say? Her phone rang at 10:30, just as they were cleaning up the breakfast dishes. Morgan's heart jumped when she saw Ethan's name on the screen. "Hello. Morgan, good morning. I hope I'm not calling too early." "Not at all. We've been up for hours." "Is that Mr. Ethan?" Penny called from the sink, where she was rinsing plates. "Tell him I said hi." Morgan covered the phone. "Penny, please finish the dishes." Then, into the phone. "Sorry about that. Penny says hello." Ethan chuckled. "Tell her hello back. How are you this morning?" "Good. We just had pancakes." "Sounds perfect. Listen, I was wondering if you and Penny might like to join me at the botanical garden today. I remember Penny mentioned butterflies, and they have a butterfly conservatory right now." Morgan hesitated. 2 meetings in 2 days seemed like a lot, like the beginning of something, rather than just a thank you dinner. "If it's too soon, I understand," Ethan added, sensing her hesitation. "No, it's not that. It's just..." Morgan lowered her voice, moving away from where Penny could hear. "I'm not sure what this is, Ethan. Between us, does it need to be something specific right now? Can't we just enjoy each other's company and see where it goes?" His words were reasonable, but Morgan had been reasonable before, had given men the benefit of the doubt, had ended up hurt and alone. "I have Penny to think about," she said finally. "She gets attached easily, and she's already had one father figure disappear from her life. I can't risk her getting hurt again." "I understand," Ethan said, his voice gentle, "and I respect that. But I'm not asking for a commitment, Morgan. Just a day at the botanical garden. Penny will love the butterflies, and afterward we can all get ice cream. No pressure, no expectations." Put that way, it was hard to refuse. And the truth was, Morgan wanted to see him again. Wanted to see if last night's connection was real, or just a product of an unusual situation. "Okay," she said finally, "but just as friends." "Just as friends," Ethan agreed, though something in his tone suggested he hoped for more. "I'll pick you up at noon, if that works?" "That's fine. I'll text you our address." Morgan watched her daughter's joy, a lump forming in her throat. This was an experience she could never have given Penny on her own. For all her reservations about Ethan and his wealth, She couldn't deny the happiness he was bringing to her child's life. "She's amazing," Ethan said, coming to stand beside her. "So curious about everything." "She's always been that way," Morgan replied. "Even as a baby, she wanted to see and touch everything. It made childproofing a nightmare." Ethan laughed. "I can imagine." A butterfly landed on Morgan's shoulder, its wings a brilliant orange and black. She held perfectly still, not wanting to disturb it. "Monarch," Ethan said softly. "The ones that migrate to Mexico." You were paying attention to Penny's facts. "Of course, she's a very effective teacher." The butterfly fluttered its wings, then took off again, joining its companions in their graceful dance around the conservatory. "Thank you for this," Morgan said, watching Penny, who was now carefully examining a feeding station where butterflies sipped from fruit. "It means a lot to her." "And to you." Morgan met his gaze. "Yes, to me too." Something passed between them then. An understanding, a connection that went beyond words. For a moment, Morgan forgot about their differences, about her reservations, about everything except the warmth in Ethan's gray-blue eyes. Then Penny called out, breaking the spell. "Mommy, Mr. Ethan, come see this one. It's huge." They spent the next hour exploring the conservatory, with Penny leading the way and Ethan asking questions that delighted her with their seriousness. Morgan watched them together, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside her. Joy at Penny's happiness, gratitude for Ethan's kindness, and something else, a flicker of hope, perhaps, that this unusual connection might actually lead somewhere good. As they left the conservatory, Penny skipping ahead with a butterfly identification guide Ethan had bought her at the gift shop, Morgan felt her phone buzz in her pocket. She checked it, a text from Tasha. "OMG, Morgan, check this now." Attached was a link to a gossip website. Morgan clicked it, then froze. There on the screen was a photo of her, Ethan, and Penny at the restaurant the night before. The headline read, "Blackwood's secret family? Tech billionaire spotted with mystery woman and child." "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, noticing her expression. Morgan wordlessly handed him the phone. His face darkened as he read the article, which speculated wildly about their relationship and Penny's parentage. "I'm so sorry about this," he said, handing the phone back. "I should have been more careful. How did they even get this photo?" "Someone at the restaurant, probably. Paid by a tabloid." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "This is why I don't do personal relationships. Everything becomes public property." The words stung more than Morgan expected. "I see." Ethan caught her tone. "That's not what I meant. I hate that my presence in your life has created this invasion of privacy." "Mommy, look," Penny called, oblivious to the tension. "They have ice cream." Morgan forced a smile. "Just a minute, sweetie." Ethan touched her arm gently. "We should talk about this, but not here. Not with Penny around. Let's get that ice cream first." Morgan nodded, trying to push aside her worry. But as they walked toward the garden cafe, she couldn't help noticing several people glancing their way, then at their phones. Were they recognizing Ethan from the article? Were they taking more photos? The ice cream distracted Penny, who happily chatted about all the butterflies she'd seen and how she couldn't wait to tell her class about the blue morpho. Morgan tried to focus on her daughter's excitement, but her mind kept returning to the article. What would this mean for them? For her job? For Penny's life at school? "Penny," Ethan said when they'd finished their ice cream, "would you like to see the Japanese garden? I hear they have koi fish as big as your arm." "Really? Can we, Mommy?" Morgan nodded. "You two go ahead. I need to make a quick call. I'll catch up." Once they were out of earshot, Morgan called Tasha. "Please tell me you've seen it," Tasha said without preamble. "I've seen it. It's ridiculous." "Is it, though? You're literally at the botanical garden with him right now, aren't you?" Morgan sighed. "Yes, but it's not what the article implies. We're just friends. Friends, right?" Tasha's skepticism was palpable. "Well, your friend is all over social media this morning. And not just because of you. Apparently, There's some big merger in the works between his company and Harrington Tech. The timing of this secret family revelation is suspicious. What do you mean? I mean, someone might be trying to mess with his business by messing with his personal life. And you and Penny are caught in the middle. Morgan's stomach clenched. That's absurd. Is it? The business world is cutthroat, Morgan. And billionaires play by different rules. Ethan's not like that. How do you know? You met him a week ago. The question hit home. How well did she really know Ethan Blackwood? She'd spent maybe a total of 6 hours in his company. That wasn't enough time to truly know anyone, let alone someone from a world so different from her own. I have to go, Morgan said. Penny's waiting. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you or Penny get hurt. Morgan hung up and sat for a moment trying to collect her thoughts. Then she went to find Ethan and Penny. They were at the edge of the koi pond. Penny crouched down with Ethan beside her, both watching the massive fish glide through the water. The sight should have been heartwarming. This powerful man taking time to share a child's wonder. But now, with Tasha's warnings echoing in her mind, Morgan found herself questioning everything. Was this all some elaborate game to Ethan? A novelty? Poor single mom and cute kid. So different from his usual world. Or worse, was he using them somehow in his business dealings? Mommy, look, Penny called, spotting her. The fish are huge. Morgan joined them, forcing a smile. They're amazing. Ethan studied her face. Everything okay? Fine, she lied. Just work stuff. He clearly didn't believe her, but he didn't press the issue in front of Penny. They spent another hour exploring the gardens, but the easy camaraderie of earlier had evaporated. Morgan found herself watching Ethan, looking for signs of insincerity or calculation, hating herself for the suspicion, but unable to shake it. Finally, as they walked back to the car, Penny ran ahead to look at a fountain, giving them a moment alone. You're upset about the article, Ethan said. It wasn't a question. I'm concerned, Morgan corrected, about what it means for Penny. For my job. I understand, and I'm truly sorry. If I'd known we were being photographed. But that's just it, Morgan interrupted. This is your normal. Being photographed, being speculated about. It's not mine, and it's definitely not what I want for Penny. Ethan's expression tightened. So that's it? One tabloid article and you're done. It's not just the article. It's everything. This, she gestured between them, doesn't make sense. We're from completely different worlds, Ethan. You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a nursing assistant who can barely make rent. What could possibly come of this? I don't know, he admitted, but I'd like the chance to find out. Morgan shook her head. At what cost? My privacy? Penny's stability? She's already asking if you're going to be my boyfriend. What happens when you get bored or busy or realize this was all just a novelty? Hurt flashed across Ethan's face. Is that what you think this is to me? A novelty? I don't know what this is to you. That's the point. I don't know you, not really. And you don't know me. I know enough, he said quietly. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you love your daughter fiercely. I know you can handle a medical emergency with more composure than most trained professionals. And I know that when you smile, really smile, not the polite one you give to strangers, it lights up your whole face. The words hit Morgan like a physical blow. She hadn't expected such careful observation, such genuine appreciation. Ethan, I'm not asking for promises, Morgan. I'm just asking for a chance. A chance to see if this connection we both feel might lead somewhere worth exploring. Before she could respond, Penny came running back. Can we go see the roses now? Morgan looked at her daughter's excited face, then at Ethan's hopeful one. She felt torn between protecting what she had and risking it for something more. Actually, sweetie, I think it's time we headed home. You have school tomorrow, and I have an early shift. Disappointment clouded Penny's features. But we haven't seen everything yet. We can come back another time, Morgan promised, avoiding Ethan's gaze. The drive back to their apartment was quiet, with only Penny's occasional comments about butterflies breaking the silence. When they arrived, Morgan expected Ethan to stay in the car, to let them go with a polite goodbye. Instead, he turned off the engine. "I'd like to walk you up, if that's okay." Morgan hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." In the apartment, Penny immediately went to get her butterfly book to show Ethan all the species they'd seen. Morgan used the moment to gather her thoughts in the kitchen, making tea she didn't really want just to have something to do with her hands. "Penny," she called, "why don't you go take your bath? It's getting late." "But I want to show Mr. Ethan." "Now, please." Penny sighed dramatically but obeyed, giving Ethan a quick hug before disappearing into the bathroom. The gesture, so natural, so trusting, made Morgan's heart ache. "She's getting attached to you," Morgan said once they were alone. "Is that such a bad thing?" "It is if you're not planning to stick around." Ethan moved closer, his expression serious. "Morgan, I don't know what the future holds. I can't promise you forever. No one can. But I can promise you that I'm not here on a whim or out of curiosity, or because I see you and Penny as some kind of novelty." "Then why are you here? What could someone like you possibly want with someone like me?" "Someone like me?" Ethan repeated, a hint of frustration in his voice. "Do you know what my life is like, Morgan? It's meetings and acquisitions and people who want things from me. It's empty apartments and dinners alone and conversations that are really negotiations in disguise." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Morgan was beginning to recognize as a sign of genuine emotion. "And then I met you. You who fell asleep on my shoulder because you were so exhausted from helping others. You who reads to your daughter even when you can barely keep your eyes open. You who jumped up to help a stranger having a heart attack without a second thought." He took a step closer. "You see me as someone like me, a billionaire, a CEO, someone from another world. But when I'm with you and Penny, I don't feel like any of those things. I just feel like Ethan. And that's worth something to me. It's worth a lot, actually." Morgan's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. Not Derek, certainly. Not any of the few men she'd dated since. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not just of the tabloids or the attention. I'm scared of letting you into our lives and then watching you leave." "I can't promise I won't leave," Ethan said honestly. "But I can promise that I won't leave lightly. That whatever happens between us, I'll always respect you and care about Penny's well-being." He reached out, taking her hand in his. "All I'm asking for is a chance, Morgan. A chance to see where this goes, at whatever pace feels right to you." Morgan looked down at their joined hands. His large and manicured, hers small with short, practical nails. Such different hands from such different lives. Yet somehow they fit together. "Okay," she said finally. "A chance. But we take it slow. And Penny comes first, always. I wouldn't have it any other way." The smile that spread across his face, genuine, with that small dimple in his left cheek, made something flutter in Morgan's chest. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe it would end in disaster. But in that moment, looking at Ethan Blackwood standing in her tiny kitchen, Morgan felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. 6 months later, Morgan stood in front of the mirror in Ethan's guest bathroom, hardly recognizing herself. The woman reflected back wore a midnight blue gown that fit perfectly, her hair styled in elegant waves, her makeup subtle but enhancing. "Mommy, you look like a princess," Penny exclaimed from the doorway, already dressed in her own party dress. A miniature version of Morgan's, but in emerald green. "So do you, sweetie." Morgan smoothed Penny's hair. "Are you excited for the gala?" Penny nodded enthusiastically. "Mr. Ethan said there's going to be a chocolate fountain, just like in Willy Wonka. Did he now?" Morgan raised an eyebrow. "Well, don't get any ideas about falling in." "I won't," Penny promised solemnly. "I'm going to be super sophisticated. Like you taught me." Morgan smiled, remembering their sophistication lessons over the past week. How to use the right fork, how to make small talk, how to politely excuse yourself. All in preparation for tonight's Blackwood Foundation Gala, where Morgan would be officially introduced to Ethan's world. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. After their heart-to-heart in her kitchen, Ethan had kept his word about taking things slow. They'd had dinner once a week, sometimes with Penny, sometimes alone while Tasha babysat. They'd gone to museums, parks, even a butterfly exhibition that had Penny talking for days. Ethan had been patient, respectful of Morgan's boundaries, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He'd been equally respectful of her independence, never offering money or expensive gifts that might make her feel like a charity case. The tabloid attention had died down after a few weeks, especially once the Blackwood-Harrington merger fell through. Ethan had explained that Victor Harrington's business practices didn't align with his values, a diplomatic way of saying the man was as untrustworthy as Ethan had initially suspected. Slowly, cautiously, Morgan had let her guard down, had let Ethan into their lives in meaningful ways, had let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this impossible connection could work. And now here they were, about to attend a major public event together. Morgan's first real step into Ethan's world. "You look beautiful." Ethan's voice came from behind her. He stood in the doorway, handsome in a classic tuxedo, his eyes warm as they took her in. "Thank you," Morgan said, suddenly shy. "It's all Naomi's doing. I had no idea what to wear to something like this." Ethan's executive assistant had taken Morgan shopping, guiding her through the intimidating world of designer fashion with surprising kindness. "Naomi found the dress," Ethan corrected. "But the beauty is all you," Penny giggled. "You guys are being mushy again." Ethan laughed, kneeling down to her level. "And you, Miss Penny, look absolutely stunning. The most sophisticated 6.5-year-old in all of New York." 6 3/4, Penny corrected seriously. "My mistake." Ethan stood, offering an arm to each of them. "Shall we, ladies? The car is waiting." The Blackwood Foundation Gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a venue so grand it took Morgan's breath away. Hundreds of guests in formal wear mingled beneath soaring ceilings and priceless art. A string quartet played in one corner, while waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. "Nervous?" Ethan asked quietly as they paused at the entrance. "Terrified," Morgan admitted. "What if I use the wrong fork? What if I say something stupid? What if everyone wonders what you're doing with someone like me?" Ethan turned to face her fully. "First, there are no wrong forks. Second, you've never said a stupid thing in your life. And third, anyone who wonders what I'm doing with you clearly hasn't had the privilege of knowing you." He squeezed her hand. "Besides, you've got a secret weapon." "What's that?" "You saved Harold Weinstein's life at Botanica 6 months ago. He's the chairman of the hospital board and a major donor to the foundation. He's been singing your praises to anyone who'll listen." Morgan's eyes widened. "The man with the heart attack? That was Harold Weinstein." Ethan nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. Sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways. As if on cue, an elderly man approached them, his wife at his side. "Ethan, and this must be the famous Morgan Riley. My dear, I've been hoping to thank you properly for months." Morgan recognized him immediately, the man from the restaurant. "Mr. Weinstein, it's wonderful to see you looking so well." "Thanks to you," he said warmly. "Quick thinking and a steady hand. That's what my doctor said saved me. A few more minutes without that nitroglycerin, and we might be having a very different conversation." His wife squeezed Morgan's hand. "We're forever grateful, Ms. Riley. Please call me Morgan. And I was just doing my job." "Well, your job saved my husband's life. And now I hear you're working on a nursing scholarship program with the Blackwood Foundation? Brilliant idea." Morgan glanced at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly. The nursing scholarship had been her idea, a way to help other healthcare workers who, like her, had been forced to abandon their education due to financial constraints or family responsibilities. "Yes," Morgan said, finding her voice. "We're hoping to launch the program next fall. Full scholarships for nursing assistants who want to complete their RN degrees, with stipends for childcare and living expenses." "Marvelous," Mrs. Weinstein said. "Harold, we should contribute. This is exactly the kind of practical program that makes a real difference." "Already ahead of you, my dear," Mr. Weinstein said with a wink. Ethan and I have been discussing numbers. More guests approached, and soon Morgan found herself in conversation after conversation, explaining the scholarship program with growing confidence. To her surprise, people listened, really listened, to her ideas. No one seemed to question her presence or her relationship with Ethan. If anything, they seemed impressed by both. "Where's Penny?" Morgan asked during a brief lull, suddenly realizing she hadn't seen her daughter in a while. "With Naomi. Last I checked," Ethan said, scanning the room. "Ah, there they are." He pointed to a corner where Penny was deep in conversation with a group of adults, including Naomi and what appeared to be several board members. Penny was gesturing animatedly, clearly in storytelling mode. "Should I rescue them from her butterfly facts?" Morgan asked, half joking. Ethan chuckled. "Actually, I think she's telling them about the scholarship program. She's become quite the advocate." As if sensing their gaze, Penny looked up and waved enthusiastically before returning to her conversation. "She fits in here better than I do," Morgan observed. "You fit perfectly," Ethan countered. "Look around. You've charmed everyone from the hospital board to the tech investors. The Weinsteins are ready to adopt you. And I just overheard the mayor's wife asking Naomi where you got your dress." Morgan blushed. "I still feel like I'm playing dress-up. Like any minute someone's going to realize I don't belong." Ethan took her hand, leading her toward a quiet alcove away from the main crowd. "Can I tell you a secret? I feel that way too, sometimes. You? But this is your world. Is it?" He gestured around at the opulent surroundings. "I was born into money, yes. But all this, the company, the foundation, the social obligations, I built it because I thought it was what I was supposed to do. What was expected of me as a Blackwood." He looked at her intently. "But it never felt like home, not really. Not until recently." "What changed?" Morgan asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "I met someone who fell asleep on my shoulder on the F train," Ethan said with a small smile. "Someone who showed me what really matters." Before Morgan could respond, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A man was arguing with the security guards, his voice rising above the polite murmur of the gala. "I have every right to be here. I'm Victor Harrington. For God's sake." Ethan's expression darkened. "Excuse me for a moment." He moved toward the disturbance, his posture shifting subtly from relaxed to alert. Morgan watched as he spoke briefly to the security team, then to Harrington himself. The conversation appeared tense but controlled. Finally, Harrington turned and left, shooting one last glare over his shoulder. Not at Ethan, but directly at Morgan. A chill ran down her spine. This was the man Tasha had warned her about, the one who might use her and Penny to get to Ethan. When Ethan returned to her side, his expression was carefully neutral. "Sorry about that. Victor's had too much to drink, I think." "He looked at me," Morgan said quietly, "like he knew who I was." "He probably does. The tabloids made sure of that." Ethan touched her arm gently. "Don't worry about Victor. He's just angry about the merger falling through." "Is that all it is?" Ethan hesitated, then sighed. "No, he's been making threats. Vague ones, mostly. Saying he has information that could damage me, the company." "What kind of information?" "Nothing real. Victor deals in innuendo and manipulation. It's why I backed out of the merger in the first place." Ethan squeezed her hand. "I didn't want to worry you with this. I'm not made of glass, Ethan. I can handle the truth." He nodded, acknowledging her point. "You're right. I'm sorry. Old habits of handling everything myself." "We're supposed to be partners," Morgan reminded him. "That means sharing the burdens, not just the good stuff." "Partners?" Ethan repeated, a smile spreading across his face. "I like the sound of that." The moment was interrupted by Penny, who came running up with Naomi close behind. "Mommy, Mr. Weinstein said he's going to donate $1 million to our scholarship." $1 million? Morgan's eyes widened. That's incredible. "And he said it's all because of you," Penny continued excitedly. "Because you saved his life and because your idea is visionary." That's what he said. Visionary. Naomi nodded confirmation. The board is extremely impressed, Morgan. They're talking about expanding the program nationally within 3 years. Morgan felt overwhelmed. 6 months ago, she'd been a struggling single mom who could barely pay rent. Now she was at a gala in her honor, launching a program that could help thousands of healthcare workers like her. And it had all started because she fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder. Are you okay, Mommy? You look funny. Morgan blinked back tears. I'm fine, sweetie. Just very, very happy. Penny beamed. Me too. And guess what? They have a chocolate fountain, just like Mr. Ethan said. Can I go see it? Please. I'll take her, Naomi offered. And make sure she doesn't recreate any scenes from Willy Wonka. As they walked away, Ethan turned to Morgan. So, Ms. Riley, how does it feel to be visionary? Surreal, she admitted. All of this is surreal. Sometimes I still think I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream. If it's a dream, then we're sharing it. Ethan took both her hands in his. And I don't want to wake up. The string quartet began playing a waltz, and couples moved to the center of the room to dance. May I have this dance? Ethan asked, offering his arm. Morgan hesitated. I'm not much of a dancer. Neither am I. We can be terrible together. Laughing, she took his arm. How can I refuse an offer like that? As they moved onto the dance floor, Morgan caught sight of Penny watching them from beside the chocolate fountain, a wide smile on her face. Naomi stood beside her, carefully monitoring her chocolate consumption while engaging her in conversation. Penny seems to have made herself at home here, Morgan observed as Ethan led her in a simple waltz. She has a gift for connecting with people, Ethan said. Like her mother. Morgan snorted. I'm not the one who charmed a billionaire on the subway. No, you're the one who drooled on his Armani suit and still managed to intrigue him. I did not drool, Morgan protested, then paused. Did I? Ethan's laugh was warm and genuine. Maybe a little. It was endearing. Oh God. Morgan buried her face against his shoulder in mock embarrassment. Hey, Ethan said softly, tilting her chin up to meet his gaze. I wouldn't change a thing about how we met. Not one single thing. The intensity in his eyes made Morgan's breath catch. Neither would I. As they continued to dance, Morgan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that fateful train ride to this moment, swaying in Ethan's arms at a gala in her honor. Hadn't been easy. There had been adjustments, compromises, moments of doubt on both sides. But there had also been joy, laughter, connection, the kind of understanding that transcended their different backgrounds and circumstances. What are you thinking about? Ethan asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. About how sometimes the best things in life happen when you're too exhausted to keep your eyes open, Morgan replied with a smile. Ethan's answering smile, the one with the small dimple in his left cheek, still made her heart skip, even after all these months. I have something for you, he said as the music ended. I was going to wait until later, but now seems right. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Morgan's heart raced. Ethan, it's not what you think, he said quickly, opening the box to reveal a key. Or maybe it is, in a way, a key to my apartment, our apartment if you want it to be. He took a deep breath. I'm asking you and Penny to move in with me, Morgan, to make a home together. Morgan stared at the key, emotions swirling. This was a big step, bigger than the gala, bigger than the scholarship program. This was about creating a family. What about Penny's school? My job at the hospital? We can work all that out. Penny can stay at her school if that's what's best for her. You can keep your job if you want to, or focus on the foundation, or do something else entirely. Whatever makes you happy. He took her hand, placing the key in her palm and closing her fingers around it. I'm not asking you to give up your independence or your identity. I'm just asking you to share your life with me, to let me be part of your family. Morgan looked across the room at Penny, who was now teaching what appeared to be a Supreme Court justice how to properly dip a strawberry in the chocolate fountain. Her daughter had adapted to this new world with the resilience and openness that children possess. But more importantly, Ethan had adapted to theirs. Sitting through school plays, helping with homework, even learning to make pancakes on Sunday mornings. "Yes," Morgan said, turning back to Ethan. "Yes, we'll move in with you." The joy that spread across his face was worth any lingering doubts she might have had. He pulled her close, kissing her softly. "I love you, Morgan Riley," he whispered against her lips. "You and Penny both. We love you too," she replied, and realized she'd never meant anything more in her life. Later that night, as they rode home in Ethan's car, Penny asleep between them, chocolate smudges still visible on her fingers despite Naomi's best efforts. Morgan looked out at the city lights and marveled at how life could change in an instant. One moment of exhaustion on a subway train had led to this. A new family, a new purpose, a new beginning. "What are you smiling about?" Ethan asked softly, careful not to wake Penny. Morgan turned to him, her heart full. "I was just thinking that sometimes the best pillows come with the most unexpected benefits." Ethan's quiet laugh filled the car, and Morgan knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. 1 year later, Morgan stood in the auditorium of Brooklyn Memorial Hospital, watching as the first class of Blackwood Riley nursing scholars received their acceptance letters. 20 nursing assistants, single parents, immigrants, career changers, all being given the chance she'd once thought impossible for herself. "They look so happy," Penny said, now 7 3/4, standing beside her in a dress she'd picked out herself, "like they won the lottery." "In a way, they did," Morgan replied. "They're getting a second chance." "Like we did," Penny observed with the simple wisdom of children. "Yes, exactly like we did." Ethan joined them, slipping an arm around Morgan's waist. "The board wants to double the program next year. The results from the pilot have been extraordinary." "That's wonderful," Morgan said, leaning into him, "though I'm not sure how much more involved I can be with the baby coming." Her hand rested on her slightly rounded belly, still barely visible beneath her dress. The pregnancy had been a surprise, a welcome one, but a surprise nonetheless. "You'll do as much or as little as you want," Ethan assured her. "The foundation has hired a full-time director. Remember, this is your vision, but you don't have to manage every detail." Morgan nodded, grateful for his understanding. The past year had been a whirlwind of changes. Moving in with Ethan, completing her own nursing degree, helping launch the scholarship program. Through it all, Ethan had been her partner in every sense of the word, supporting her dreams while building a life together. "Can I tell them about the baby yet?" Penny asked, practically bouncing with excitement. She'd been ecstatic about becoming a big sister, already making plans for all the things she would teach the new arrival. "Not yet, sweetie," Morgan said. "We're waiting until after the first trimester, remember?" "But that's forever," Penny sighed dramatically. "Just a few more weeks," Ethan promised. "Then you can tell everyone." As the ceremony concluded, Morgan found herself approached by one of the scholarship recipients. A young woman with a determined expression and tired eyes that reminded Morgan of herself not so long ago. "Ms. Riley," the woman said, "I just wanted to thank you personally. This scholarship, it's changing everything for me and my son." Morgan smiled, recognizing the mixture of hope and exhaustion in the woman's face. "What's your name?" "Lucia. Lucia Mendez. I've been a nursing assistant for 3 years, but with a 4-year-old and rent to pay." She shrugged, the gesture conveying volumes about the struggle Morgan knew all too well. "It's going to be hard," Morgan told her honestly. "Balancing school and parenting isn't easy, but we've built in supports, the childcare stipend, the mentoring program, and I'm always available if you need someone who understands." Lucia's eyes widened. "Really? You'd make time for that?" "Absolutely. That's the whole point of this program. Not just financial support, but a community." After Lucia moved on, visibly moved by the conversation, Ethan squeezed Morgan's hand. "You're making a real difference, you know? Not just with the money, but with your example. These women see what's possible because of you." Morgan shook her head. "Because of us. I couldn't have done any of this without you." "That's not true," You were extraordinary long before you met me. I just had the good fortune to be in the right place at the right time. On the F train at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, Morgan said with a smile. Best commute of my life. Mine too, Ethan agreed, though I did end up with drool on my suit. Morgan elbowed him playfully. You're never going to let me forget that, are you? Not a chance. He kissed her temple. It's my favorite part of our story. As they left the hospital, Penny skipping ahead and chattering about names for the baby, Morgan reflected on the strange, wonderful journey that had brought them here. From exhausted single mom to scholarship founder. From nursing assistant to registered nurse. From woman who fell asleep on a stranger to woman who built a life with him. All because she'd been too tired to keep her eyes open on a subway train. Sometimes Morgan thought the best things in life happen when we're at our most vulnerable. When we're too exhausted to maintain our walls. When we allow ourselves to lean, literally in her case, on others. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we find someone worth leaning on for the rest of our lives. Ready to go home? Ethan asked, taking her hand. Morgan looked at him. At the man who had once been a stranger's shoulder and was now the center of her world, and smiled. Yes, she said. I'm ready. And she was. Ready for home. Ready for family. Ready for whatever came next in this unexpected, beautiful life they were building together. All because an exhausted mom fell asleep on a stranger's lap on the train. A stranger who turned out to be so much more than a billionaire CEO. He turned out to be the pillow she'd been looking for all along.